My name is Vince Rugari, and I am a reporter for the Sydney Morning Herald, a newspaper here in Australia.
Cool. So let's kick it off this way. How's the World Cup being anticipated by Australia fans?
Uh, well, we're probably not dissimilar to America in that, as a country, no one really is thinking about the World Cup right now. But the people who follow football are pretty psyched, not only for the tournament, which I think is going to be great, but also the Socceroos are in a pretty fascinating position, kind of like, as I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about, the Socceroos have never really gone into a World Cup with this level of young talent on the way up. Like it feels like to me like the Socceroos are entering a period where the next, maybe 2026 comes a little bit too soon for these guys, but the next couple are going to be pretty exciting. So literally anything's in play for us, I think. Winning all three games in the group, losing all three games in the group. Uh, we could do anything here, and that's part of the fun.
So I'm tending to find when I ask the fan question, there seems to be optimism, looking to the future. And then when I ask how is this being covered by Australian media or just the media in certain countries, there seems like this cloud of pessimism. So does that translate to Australia, or is there still a level of, hey, it's young, free hit kind of vibe?
It's kind of like that.
Okay.
It's not. I don't sense a lot of pessimism really at all. I also don't sense a whole lot of people going, "We're going to absolutely kill it at this World Cup." It's weirdly in the middle of those two zones. Usually, we're pretty pessimistic when it comes to the Socceroos for whatever reason, and definitely a couple of the results they had in friendlies towards the end of last year, against Colombia, Venezuela in particular, were a bit of a reality check. Um, but some of our guys that we're pretty excited about have been doing exceptionally well at club level recently. In relative terms, in relative terms, in the sense of Australian players, performing well overseas. It's been a while since we've had any Premier League regulars, but we got a group who are bubbling under the surface and could jump to that level, I think, in the next cycle for sure. And a good World Cup here is definitely going to help some of them get that attention.
So what's your reading overall of Australian football culture, soccer? I'm sure is the word that's used there. But what's the reading of soccer culture in Australia?
Interesting. We use both words, by the way. I mean, probably the people who follow it closely use football. Probably the people who don't use soccer. I kind of use both interchangeably. Sometimes I use soccer when I'm describing the bad things and football for the good things, if that makes sense. Um, but the culture is we're a funny country with football, as you could imagine. It's not the number one game here, so when it comes to the Socceroos, it's pretty much the average Australian only switches on the day before the first game and switches off the day after the last game that we're involved in. That's kind of how it is. It's pretty frustrating for people like me who live and breathe it all the time. And it should be different because the Socceroos, despite not being, not playing the number one sport in Australia, I would say that, the top three national teams in any sport in Australia, in any given order, depending on what's big at that time, are the Australian Test cricket team and then the Socceroos and the Matildas. So we have two of the top three of Australia's national teams, I think, in terms of following and interest. But that following and interest very much depends on moments like we're about to have with the World Cup. So, as I said, the people who've been following along have been on this ride and don't get off. But there's a whole lot of people who are about to jump back on who haven't really paid attention to the Socceroos since we came so close to pushing Argentina into extra time at the last World Cup. And these are the people who are going to learn about the names like Nestor Irankunda and Mohamed Toure and Alessandro Ciccardi and Jordan Boss for the first time. And hopefully, in terms of fan culture in Australia, the number one thing I'm hoping that happens is that this category of guy, these players who are sort of 23 and under, and really exciting compared to some of the other groups of youth players that we've had, they're hopefully going to become household names at this World Cup in Australia.
Where does football rank in the hierarchy of Australian sport?
It's a funny place because it's the number one sport in Australia for participation.
Hmm.
Everyone plays football. Uh, Everyone watches football at some level. It's probably mostly the Premier League and overseas leagues, though, that they're obsessed with. The A League has definitely dropped down the pecking order from where it was maybe 10 years ago. It's a challenge fan interest with the A League, to be frank. But the league itself is has struck on this vein of young talent, partly because our clubs are so poorly resourced, and partly because over a period of time, investments that were made at a academy grassroots level by our clubs and our systems are starting to bear fruit. And so some of the players who are coming through are benefiting from this thing that's happening, which is a lack of money in the game, which means they get exposed earlier, but also they're good. They're not just getting exposed because there's no money. That helps. But the reason is we are now producing a base level of young player that's higher than sort of any point in the last maybe 15 years in Australian football. And that's pretty exciting. So the national teams will be followed when it's their turn in the spotlight. The domestic league struggles, but football overall is a big sport in Australia. It's not the number one sport, but it's bigger than what the following of the A League would suggest.
Does Australia have like best athletes discussion? Like, if only our best athletes, whatever athlete actually means, if they didn't play rugby, if they didn't play cricket, if they didn't play Aussie rules, our national team would be better? Does that exist there? Perhaps in the same way it does in the United States, Canada, maybe New Zealand?
Probably, yeah. And generally, those discussions again happen every 4 years when it's everyone else switching back on. But I often think about this. I often think that if we have two rugby codes, right? We have rugby union and rugby league. If we only had one, and then if our sporting resources that were dedicated to Australian rules football were channeled towards the real football, I think we would be like a top 10, 15 nation without a doubt. We would be unbelievable. But I also love Aussie rules. So it's a balance for me between loving and admiring this code that's unique to us versus thinking of it as a waste of sporting resources and daydreaming about how good we would be if all the amazing Aussie rules players and all the amazing clubs that we have were football clubs instead. We would be incredible, but I'll leave that for the next time I'm sitting around wishing things were different.
Cool. So I've been asking people, and we kind of touched this one already, but I've been asking people the question to kind of put on their doctor suit and their analysis and get out the boards and everything. And what is the condition of Australian football? Is it in a healthy place or a good place? And it seems from what you've said to be generally healthy.
Yeah, weirdly both healthy in a development sense. I think there's always more we could and should do. We're not optimal, but we're healthier now than we have been for a little bit. And then I guess it's everything else that's struggling a little bit. Like the league is definitely battling financially. Some of the clubs are sort of in a place that they just shouldn't be. They've been withering on the vine for a period, whether it's because of owner, lack of financing, and these sort of things. But the national teams are, as I said before, sort of big brands for sure. So we're in a weird place where it's not healthy, it's not terminal, but there are aspects of Australian football and the ecosystem that definitely require some attention, are probably only maintained due to the success of the things that are perennially successful, like the national teams and whatnot. So I definitely think we could be in a much healthier place, particularly domestically. But the saving grace is kind of, as I touched on, the financial negatives feed into the developmental positives. So that's where we're at, I would say.
This isn't a question that was on my list, but it's now in my head. So the next Olympics are going to be in LA. Then the next ones are in Melbourne, if I have that correct.
No,
Summer Games.
Brisbane.
Okay. Is there any hope or chance that Australia could be, once we get past the centennial version of the World Cup and then the Saudi one in 34, that Australia could do some joint thing and maybe be a host of a World Cup in 38 or 42?
I sure hope so. If you remember, we were the only country that was considering any sort of bid for 2034. But the way that got handled was that it got announced, hey, we're open for bids. And then like 20 minutes later, Saudi was like, Yep, we're up. And then the AFC said we support the Saudi bid, and so the writing was on the wall where it was like this isn't going to be our turn. And because of the rotation system that FIFA has, it might not be Asia's turn for a long time. But having
Yeah.
said that, I think there's a strong case to be made to FIFA that if Australia partners with New Zealand, and possibly one other Southeast Asian country, you could make the argument, particularly since the last two World Cups in Asia would have been practically next door to each other in the Middle East, that you could say, okay, it's not Asia's turn, but if you look at this part of the world in the Asia Pacific region, including Oceania, which, let's be frank, will not be able to ever host a World Cup solely consisting of Oceania host nations. I think there's a strong case to be made that it's our turn. And I also believe, and this isn't just Australian arrogance speaking, but just our history of our ability to deliver amazing sporting events, we would put on one of the best World Cups ever. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We know how to do this stuff. We might not be a classic football nation, but we know how to put on major sporting events. And people who have been here will know what I'm talking about in terms of this is just an amazing place to come and watch sport and have that fever in the air, as we had for the Women's World Cup a few years ago, which, was by far the best one so far. I really hope that day comes in my lifetime, that the direction of travel of football and FIFA awarding hosting rights to events does not fill me with a whole bunch of optimism.
So let's get into the football aspects of it then. So how did Australia qualify? What was their qualification like? And what's been the form since?
So we qualified directly for the first time in, I think, 2 or 3 cycles. Now, of course, the World Cup was expanded, so it's a lot easier to qualify directly. But we started the final phase in Asia with our first loss, no, our second loss at home in a live World Cup qualifier in like 40 years. Like, we never lose World Cup qualifiers where there's something on the line, but we did. We lost to Bahrain at home. Then we went and drew away to Indonesia. And that was the moment when Graham Arnold, the coach who had us at the last World Cup, stepped down. And Tony Popovich came in at a really critical point because we had to basically win the next game. And we did. And we won, or we went undefeated for a decent little stretch there. I'm pretty sure for the remainder of qualifying, which included our first win over Japan at any level for a long time, and a win against Saudi Arabia in Jeddah, which is, far easier said than done. They're both really good national teams. And so the only 3 defeats Australia have had under Tony Popovich were friendlies towards the end of last year. There was the 2-1 defeat to the USA, which was a game that kind of could have gone either way to an extent, I think. And then those Venezuela and Colombia games, as I mentioned. I think the Colombia game in particular, it was a 3-0 defeat. We were definitely the worst team on the park there, but there was a bug that went through the squad the day before the game. Like, they were all really, really sick. And it sounded like they were just flagging an excuse after the match, but it is legit. Like, there was gastro through the team. Like, they would probably, if they had a choice, they wouldn't have played the game, but they did. And it is what it is. So from a perilous position in qualifying, we actually did quite well to get there directly. And when you look at the teams we beat, it's not just a case of, oh, well, there's more spots in Asia, so they went through easy. We still had Japan and Saudi in our group, and finished ahead of Saudi and beat Japan. So we did pretty well. It's difficult to read the form line since then because Tony Popovich has been trying to turn over new players and look at his options and explore different combinations and such, as you do with friendlies. But we're okay. We're in a good spot, I think, because less so because of it's not like the team's put out so many performances where it's like, wow, they're on fire. They know, it's all singing for what Popovich wants to do. More just individually at club level and the combination of players that we have. There's a lot of excitement there, and it seems like they're in a spot right now where things could be brought together quite well in the tournament, and particularly when they get into camp. That's when a lot of Socceroos coaches do their best work, is molding them behind a an idea, a theme for that tournament, and Aussies fall in behind that stuff. So
What kind of football should we expect from Popovich? Who is he? What's his style of play? And are fans generally happy with him or no?
uh interesting question, because we play under Popovich. The only formation we've rolled with is a 3-5, or how do you, well, 3-4-2-1. So one
Okay.
striker with two sort of inverted wingers, number 10 sort of things, and wing backs. Um, Now that gives us a pretty good platform defensively. Like, we do not give up really good chances often. Um, However, and this is a long time complaint with Australian teams in particular, is we're not particularly fluid with the football we play and the ability to pass through midfield. It's not going to be, super sexy football, and I think that's where some of the criticism of Popovich comes from in Australia, is that they would like to see a little bit more creativity, um, little bit more fluidity in the way they play, but that's often not the kind of football that brings success at international level, particularly for Australia in history. It's usually built on a platform and a counter-attacking identity, and some of the players that we have are so quick and so potent on the counter-attack that it actually plays in really well with that. And as far as Popovich goes, so he was a member of the 2006 World Cup team for Australia, which was the first to qualify for 32 years. They're considered our golden generation. And he is the first member of that golden generation to now coach the national team. He's been a pretty successful coach at Australian level, domestically. He's won titles with a couple of different teams. He also won the 2014 Asian Champions League with the Western Sydney Wanderers, who were barely, a year or two old at that point, and had been invented in a rush to fill a hole in our league after another team fell over. So he built that club from the ground up, basically, and took them from an idea to Asian champions, which is, as the years roll on, an even more remarkable achievement. A really good credentialed player in his own right as well. Popovich played for Crystal Palace in not the Premier League. I think he was part of a championship team that got promoted. And it wouldn't surprise me if he, after this World Cup, if the Socceroos don't hang on to him, does some things in Europe or possibly in Asia as well. People have said to me, Ange Postecoglou is a huge fan of Tony Popovich and believes he has the sort of credentials to follow in his footsteps a little bit. And other people I've spoken to say he's made from the same material, let's say, as Postecoglou, not stylistically, but in his ability to deliver a successful team.
Would you be surprised if Postecoglou never manages the national team? Like, is that something that's on his bucket list, or is that something he's maybe not looking into, you think?
I would not be surprised if he doesn't. I wrote a book about Ange a couple of years ago, actually, and the conclusion chapters from our discussion that we had was he's not even going to move back to Australia. He's done. He now lives in Europe. His family's based in Europe. He's sort of done with Australian football, which is really sad because he's the greatest mind our game has created or delivered to world football, and he's doing amazing things. He just got frustrated, like so many people do here, when their ambitions for Australian football are limited by the reality of who we are, the resources we have, etc. So I've made peace with the fact that Ange is going to be far more valuable outside of Australian football in advancing the causes of Australians in football than he would if he came home and coached the Socceroos again. We got a lot of good coaches, so I'm not worried that we won't have quality in the dugout in future. Although, if you did ask me, if I rubbed a lamp and a genie gave me three wishes, one of them would be, can Ange Postecoglou become both the president of our national federation and also the national team coach?
Is that one wish or two?
I'd push my luck with the genie. Let's say
You just wish for more wishes. That's the obvious thing.
that's
All right,
the shortcut. Yeah.
Let's talk about players. Let's get into the squad. So, what top players do you think are playing at a good level and ready to perform? And then, who are some names that we don't know about as people that maybe aren't watching the A League or parts beyond that you think that player is also in a good moment?
So there's a few. Our most experienced players, or the ones that people would recognize the names if they haven't been watching super closely, are our captain and goalkeeper, Matty Ryan, who plays at Levante in Spain, has had a really good season. Obviously, been facing a lot of shots, so he's had a lot of work, but he's stood up to it and reliable as ever. The guy's going to finish his career as probably the most capped Australian male footballer of all time, legend. Jackson Irvine in midfield, playing for St. Pauli. Again, a sort of another known quantity. He's really lifted his level over the last few years since playing in the Bundesliga. However, he is carrying a bit of a foot injury, which is requiring, I'm pretty sure, pain-killing injections for him to get through week to week. It seems to, whatever he's doing seems to be working. But I think if there wasn't a World Cup around the corner, he probably would have had surgery to put that problem right. But, touch wood, he's going to be okay for the World Cup. It seems that that's the case. So they're the two main ones in terms of experienced players. And maybe throw in a Riley McGree, who's been in and around the national team for a while, playing regularly with Middlesbrough, one of Middlesbrough's best players on his day. But it's the other guys who were not around at the last World Cup who excite me the most. Building from the back, Alessandro Ceccardi is a centre-back who was eligible for Italy and Australia. He plays for Parma in Serie A, has worn the captain's armband for Parma. I don't think we'll be at Parma for much longer because there's a lot of interest in him from big clubs across Europe. Just you've heard the term, I'm sure, Rolls Royce of a centre back. This guy is that. He's a class act. Has captained Australia as well in a couple of matches. So he's going to be, one of the cornerstones of our back three at this World Cup for sure. To his left, at left wing back, is Jordan Boss, who plays for Feyenoord. Has just been named their Player of the Month. He's got something like 11 assists and 3 goals this season for Feyenoord in his first season in the Netherlands as well. Before that, he was in Belgium. This guy has been, described as a bit of a, there's a bit of Gareth Bale about him. Not saying he's Gareth Bale level, but the way he is, he's a big, strong, quick, left-sided player.
Pace and power.
Pace and power. Like he glides past players, sometimes like they're not there. Like he's really strong. And you could put him anywhere along the left side. In fact, he has been deployed as a winger from time to time, and he's really good. His only problem is his hamstring, which seems to give up on him every now and then. But touch wood again, he's going to be okay. I think if it wasn't for his hamstring, he'd be higher than Feyenoord in terms of his club level. And he's the one who's spoken about a lot as our next Premier League player. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he's there next season. For sure, one of the best left backs in world football outside of the big few leagues, I would say. And then up front, there's another two who give Australian supporters a whole lot of optimism for the future. And they are Mohamed Toure and Nestri Irankunda, two African-Australian kids who come from my hometown of Adelaide. I think one or both possibly come from refugee families. And came through Adelaide United, the club there, at really young ages and caught the eye straight away. And both are doing super well overseas at the moment. They're both playing in the English Championship. So Mohamed Toure went to Norwich in January and just can't stop scoring and assisting. I did the maths the other day, and this could be out of date by now, or certainly by the time anyone hears this. But he was running at a goal every 15 touches. Like, he has, Philip Clement as well was describing his mentality as Haaland-esque, which is not something managers just say willy-nilly. He's taken off since he went to Norwich. They love him there. And I'd never have the Socceroos gone into a World Cup with a young, hungry, exciting striker on the way up. Like, we've gone in with veterans and guys like Viduka and Cahill and other guys in their mid to late 20s who are sort of transitional era players, like not someone you can build around. Toure looks like he could be our best striker for a while. And then the exciting thing about him and Boss on the left and Irankunda, if he plays in that left inverted winger role, is that their combination together could be really special. So Irankunda is a unique player in world football for me. Like, I have never seen a player with his ball striking ability ever. Like, there's something about his physique and the way he's built and the way he executes, in particular free kicks, but also just shots from distance, that for me defies physics. And if anyone thinks I'm just an Aussie guy pumping up a Socceroos player, have a look at his highlight reel. Have a look at his age also. I'm pretty sure he's 20. And tell me if you've seen a player before with a highlight reel like that at that age, because the ball just comes off his foot different to other players. He's short, stocky. All his power is in his legs. When he gets space, he's insanely quick. Um, he's the kind of guy who could, if he had a shot from 30 meters out, the opposition would be worried about that because he can hit it and he can make it swerve in a way that the goalkeeper won't catch. And he's just so unpredictable. Of course, the catch is that over time it's emerged that he's not the best professional. Let's say he does have a temper on the field as well. And I think opposition teams have noticed that it's quite easy to razz him up and get him to react. And that's something that, including his professionalism as well, both those things he's gotten a lot better at over time. And Iran Kunda went from, earlier this season for Watford, where he plays, from being on the bench to starting regularly and affecting games and getting more shots off in the box, which is what Popovic and his coaches at Watford have wanted him to do. He's still got a bit of maturing to do for sure. And I think he's doing that. This kid is the one who I think can go from a guy that football fans know in Australia to an absolute household name, with possibly one action at the World Cup. If he executes what I'll call like an Iran Kunda goal, this guy will become hugely famous in this country and elsewhere as well very quickly. If it sounds like I'm talking him up too much, like I try to avoid it, but it is honestly like Australia has just, like a nuclear weapon has just landed at our doorstep, because all throughout his development as well, everyone's been so careful with how to handle him, and because they're scared, almost scared, like, because everyone can see that this guy could be genuinely world class, and it's like, how do we manage him in a way that makes sure that he does? Like, there's a bit of that around him, but honestly, an exceptional talent, and I'm really excited to see how he goes at the World Cup, along with those other guys like the Toure, Iran Kunda boss combination that we've seen in patches for the Socceroos over recent months is really good. Like, we never had those kind of profile of players in the Socceroos at once, so it's a really exciting time.
I've got 3 quick ones left, Vince. Australia's floor and ceiling. What do you think they are at this particular World Cup?
Floor, 3 losses, because the group is it might not be the hardest on paper, but it's the most even. And I actually don't remember a time watching the World Cup where I've seen a World Cup group that is so even. Like, any of these teams can beat any of them, and that's really exciting. So the floor is 3 losses. Wouldn't shock me. But the ceiling is, I'm going to say, round of 16 and beyond. Maybe not super far beyond, because that would be the equivalent of our best ever World Cup finish, obviously noting that there's a round of 32 in between this time. I remember seeing someone on social media do some projecting forward as well. And at some point, it might be the 16, might be the quarterfinals, but we're going to hit like a Spain or something. So even if we have an amazing World Cup, we're probably going to smash against the wall at that juncture. But literally everything's in play for us. Everything's in play. And especially if, maybe I've blown some of our cover a little bit with this podcast, but and I totally understand it. But many other countries look at Australia on the list and think, all right, well, they're just here. We don't have to worry about them or whatever. And I'm not saying we're going to win the World Cup, but I'm saying we're not bad. Like, we probably deserve a little bit more of a closer look than what many people are going to give us. And that plays into our mentality quite well, which is we love being written off.
Who's your pick to win the World Cup, Vince?
Probably France or England or Spain. I guess.
Sorry, I have an immediate aversion to hearing England.
Yeah, I mean, no one here wants that to happen. Like,
right.
The Australian-English sporting rivalry, as you could imagine, is very intense.
Yes.
But one of those 3, man, I would say.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a great World Cup, because I can't split those 3, and there's probably a group underneath that will challenge nicely as well.
last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Australia, Australian football culture, the national team that you find particularly interesting or novel that people should know or might want to know?
I think we've touched on most of it, man. Just the one thing that maybe people who haven't been watching Australian football closely or understood our migration patterns as a country particularly well is that the Australian national team has always been a fantastic reflection of Australia's ethnic makeup. You know, from the 50s onwards for a bit, there were a lot of Greek, Italian, Croatian names in our national team. And we're now entering like a phase where the African migration to Australia is starting to come through across all our sports. I don't know if you've heard of the name Gout Gout, the sprinter.
Yeah.
But this guy is a Sudanese Australian guy who's being called the next Usain Bolt, and the 2032 Olympics in Brisbane, which is his hood, feels like all of Australia is basically waiting for that moment to see if we could have an Olympic gold medalist sprinter in our own Olympics on home soil. He's an African guy. We got Africans in the AFL, the Aussie rules, and we now have a generation of African Australian footballers who are coming through the A-League and then also progressing overseas, like Mohamed Toure. He's got an older brother and a younger brother. As is always the case with football families, the youngest one is always supposed to be the best. So watch out for Musa Toure one day. But what's happening is a really exciting and kind of wonderful thing for Australia and, ethnic harmony, for lack of a better term. Like I just love to see people whose families are not from here move here, contribute to the country, and then in this case with the guys who come from all over Africa, different countries, of course, they're now going to be wearing green and gold at a World Cup stage, and sort of showing the rest of the world a side of Australia that they may not understand or see, which is going to be to the great benefit of our national team and also our whole country.
That's my kind of answer. Vince, thank you for doing this. Where can people find you?
Oh man, Twitter, I guess, @Vince Rugari. I'm still there. So, but the Sydney Morning Herald website is smh.com.au. So all my coverage is on there.
Cool. All the links will be in the description. I thank you again for doing this, Vince. Much appreciated.
Thanks, bro. My pleasure.
My name is Ahmet Turgut from Turkish Football Podcast.
Cool. So let's start here. How is this World Cup being anticipated by Turkish fans? Or is it Turkey or Turkiye? Let's check that off first.
I think it changed. It used to be Turkey. Now you could see it on FIFA website too. It is Turkiye. It is Turkiye.
Turkiye. Okay. So how is this being anticipated by Turkish fans?
Wow, the World Cup you're talking about, or
yes,
just
sir.
the name?
No, the World Cup, sir.
Wow, World Cup it's been exciting. Even though they had to play 2 playoff matches to get there, and I think beating Romania in the first match in Istanbul, then beating Kosovo in Kosovo, and with 1-0 score, that guaranteed this golden generation to be in the World Cup. I think I always said on my podcast, this golden generation should be in the World Cup. And they made it a little harder they finished in second place. But if you look at that group, with Spain being there first place, there was no way that Turkey was going to finish in first place in that group. So they made it with the playoffs. I think since 2002, that's when Turkey was in the World Cup. It's been 24 years, and this has got to be the best team that Turkey put out there. We have a lot of young stars playing for the team.
Do you sense any difference between how fans are preparing or gearing up for this tournament versus maybe more media people? Is there more skepticism with football journalists who are maybe worried about where the team is, or maybe the political landscape of United States and all that? Like how is the media covering this one?
Media is covering big time in Turkey, yes. and there will be a lot of media people coming to this North America for the World Cup. And people are excited. Also, you got to don't forget there are many Turkish Americans living in United States, also Canada, and the first match will be happening in Vancouver, Canada. So I would say the last match probably will decide this group between USA and Turkey. And in Los Angeles, there will be a lot of Turkish fans over there too. Totally, if you look at the Turkish American population in United States, around 400 to 500,000 between there. And if you figure Canada, people coming from Canada and Mexico, other countries, and United States government just announced that they will give 60,000 visas for just the World Cup games. I'm sure a lot of people from Turkey will come to the match. The only thing is, United States is a big country, and when you play in West Coast, you have to play in Vancouver and then travel to the second game is in San Francisco, somewhere around San Jose. That's a huge gap between that. After that, from San Jose to Los Angeles with car, you need to ride at least 6 hours on the thruway if the traffic is not bad, So things could be very struggling, but I think the ticket prices are outrageous right now. People are complaining about that. We'll see what happens, but I know you will see a lot of Turkish flags and Turkey jerseys out there with red or white.
It's funny because I was going to ask about the Turkish diaspora because I know it's really crazy in the big cities. And it's a shame that maybe it isn't in New York, New Jersey area that they're not playing games there, or maybe Chicago or otherwise. But if
it was the East Coast, it would have been different. Yes,
for sure. So what's your overall assessment of Turkish football in this moment? I've been asking people to maybe pretend to be doctors and assess for me the state of their country's football, both domestically and its ability to export players. Do you think Turkish football is in a good place, healthy place, or in a not so healthy place overall?
If you ask me about Turkish referees, they're the worst referees in the world. The Turkish Super League is that's why they don't have any referees going to the World Cup. The Turkish Super League has got some big stars playing for Istanbul Giants, like Galatasaray, Fenerbahçe, and Beşiktaş. Not so much this year with Beşiktaş, but Galatasaray has one of the best strikers in the world right now, Victor Osimhen, who plays for Nigeria, but Nigeria didn't make the World Cup. But he's making a lot of money in Turkey. Galatasaray paid him 75 million euros. Now, there are teams in Europe is after him, especially England. They want to pay up to 100 million to him. He's the goal scorer machine for Galatasaray. You have guys like Sanye, who played in Europe, from Dutchland. You have very important players playing in Turkey, but the thing is, the league itself, it is not private league. It's done by the government. Government elects whoever is going to be the president for Turkish football. But as far as the Turkish national team, this team is very capable of getting out of this group with the USA. This young generation, players like Arda Güler and Kenan Yıldız, Ferdi Kadıoğlu, Orkun Kökçü, goalkeeper Uğurcan Çakır. On defense, there's a lot of good names. This generation, I think, has got the best chance since 2002. As far as the national team, under the Italian coach Vincenzo Montella, I think this team is good. They have a very good future. I wouldn't be surprised if they go to quarterfinals in the World Cup. But the thing is, here's a sad thing. The captain of the team, the oldest player who plays in Italy, Inter, Hakan Çalhanoğlu just got injured. And Arda Güler, who plays for Real Madrid, just got injured. But they're saying that they will be okay when the World Cup comes around in June 14th, the first match. We'll see. Because this coach needs those two players if they want to do something in the World Cup.
For sure. I have more questions on those guys, so it's cool that you mentioned them. But I want to nail down something on the Super League. Where do you think it ranks in terms of Europe's leagues? Because there's obviously the Big Five in England, Spain, Germany, France, and Italy.
Probably.
Top 10?
Top
Okay.
10.
Okay. Because in my mind, it's there with the Eredivisie. It's there with maybe Portuguese league, and then it's in that bracket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would. I mean, with the stars that they transfer.
Yeah.
Well, Galatasaray this past season paid a lot of money for these players. And those three teams that I just mentioned to you, along with Trabzonspor, they're the ones that fill the stadium. If you look at the other teams, pretty much they're not filling the stadiums when they play. But when Galatasaray goes away, plays in away match, that stadium is packed because everyone wants to see Icardi or Osman. Now, Icardi was a star. He won championship with Galatasaray many years, I believe 3 years. Now, Osman came in this season because of injuries and all that. Icardi was second striker, and he was not happy with that. As I'm speaking, still the contract is not signed with him with Galatasaray. So he's not happy not to be the main guy as a striker, because you can't argue with that, because Osman, even though he was injured for a while, the games that Galatasaray played without the Osman, they lost all those matches. So Osman is totally different player when Galatasaray plays. Just like the derby match that happened this past weekend, they trashed Fenerbahce 3-0. The first goal was scored by Osman.
Cool.
He just came back from the injury. You probably know that he hurt himself during the Champions League match. He broke some kind of bone on his hand.
So let's get into qualification, because as you said, Turkey had a difficult group and they had to go the playoff route. Can maybe explain for us what happened in the qualification, the playoff, and then what friendlies do they have to come to maybe tune up for the World Cup?
Well, they don't have much time to have friendlies because the league is not ended. They have 3 more matches in the Turkish Super League. So we were talking about end of May. So they have only like 10 days, and they have to travel to United States or Canada first. I think they're flying first to New York. I think the guys are here in the United States right now in Canada, figuring out where they're going to be doing the camp. As soon as the league is over, they will be in North America because they want to get ready for that game. As far as your question, the group, as I said, the first match in the group was against Spain. Spain trashed Turkey with a huge score of 5-0. Everybody was saying, "Oh, this is the year that we're not going to make it again." But what happened, since the other teams are not strong as Turkey, that somehow Turkey finished in second place. So they had to play these 2 matches in the past against Romania and Kosovo. And Romania match was killer. They had no problem because Romania is not the Romania that we know. They beat Romania in Istanbul. Kosovo match was a little tight because they were playing away, small stadium, windy, rainy, and cold. They somehow, Kerem Aktürkoğlu scored a winning goal, who plays now for Fenerbahce, used to play for Galatasaray. So with that win, they made it to a World Cup in a hard way, but I think they deserve it after 24 years. Turkish fans, Turkish football fans, Turkey people want to see Turkey in the World Cup. I think it will be a good market for these golden age kids that playing. Because let's face it, 24 years ago, Arda Güler wasn't even born. Kenan Yıldız wasn't even born. So this is the new. That's why I say golden generation. They should do good as long as they're healthy.
Cool.
We have
So
a problem right now.
no, I'll finish, please.
No, we have problem right now. Arda Güler is injured. He's not playing for Real Madrid. Let's just hope that he will be 100% when the first match comes around.
Cool. So I'm going to lump these next two questions together because I feel like they may be related, and hopefully you'll relate them for me even if they aren't. So Vincenzo Montella is the manager, and then I want to link in. So his style of play and are fans happy with him is one question, but now I'm also thinking there is like a solid Italian contingent within the team when you talk of Yildiz, Hakan Kaldanoglu, and is it Zeki Selik? Yes. So there's a strong Italian contingent. What is this Turkish connection, and how does Montella fit in that?
Well, I don't think any of the players has any connections to Montella.
Oh no. I mean, is there an Italian connection between Turkish football and Italy? What's going on there?
Because Vincenzo Montella coached in Turkish Super League, the team that Adana Demirspor. When he came into Turkey, he's a young coach, and he wanted to prove himself. He used to be a great soccer player, and his big job in Turkey was with Adana Demirspor, and he got some good results. And after that, the Adana Demirspor president recommended to people who's in charge with Turkish Football Federation. At the time, we had so many coaches changed, and we had a German coach left the team. So they were looking for some Turkish coaches. And at the time, Fatih Terim, the team, and Şenol Güneş wasn't available. So with this recognition, him being bright coach, and Turkish Football Federation decided to hire him. Since his signing, I think Turkish football, Turkiye national team is on the right track, if you ask me. I mean, there was a couple times that he struggled, but the thing is, you got to remember, Turkey at one time was in different league. Now they're back to A League in Europe. So that's a huge difference. And I think Vincenzo Montella has a good connection with these young stars, with all the players. My only question to him, I've been saying this on my podcast, the second string goalkeeper right now is not good. The reason why, Uğurcan Çakır plays for Galatasaray, who used to play for Trabzonspor. But the second string goalkeeper right now, you have Altay Bayındır, who's with Manchester United, but he hasn't played in matches.
Yes.
Now, you don't want him as a second string goalkeeper. And you have Matt Günok, who used to play for Beşiktaş. He went back to Fenerbahçe. He did not play barely played. So we have a guy that very young, 20-year-old, plays in French league. He has 12 clean sheets in the French league. Plays for Lille. And Berk Özer should be the second string goalkeeper here in the Turkey's national team. But there was little confrontation between coach and officials. They kicked him out of the national team. Now I think they need to make up. Both sides. If Berk Özer has to say apologize, he should apologize, and both companies should come together, because Turkey, in case of Uğurcan Çakır gets hurt, they need a good goalkeeper as a backup, and they don't have that right now.
Cool. So I'm gonna go. Maybe let's delve into the players a bit. Arda Güler is very interesting to me because for Real Madrid, he seems on the periphery mostly. He's on the outside. But then every month or so, a coach will come in and will say, you know what, I'm going to put him in the team. And he'll get like a month here, a couple weeks here, but he never gets a real run in the team. And it feels like he needs games and development. So how do you think he's developing at Real Madrid? And what is his importance to the national team when he's actually the centerpiece?
Well, you've seen his goal, right? That goal made a lot of people think about him. So I think this current coach with Real Madrid likes him. But Arda Güler right now, if you ask me, he's not a 100% 90 minutes player. He's got a great technique, great young player. He needs to learn a lot of things yet, but his mind and his foot works at the same time. That's why that free kick and also that goal that was scored, the longest one, you've probably seen, the whole world watched it. I think his mind works with his feet. He's a talented player. If he just gets works harder on his speed, he's very, he sees the field very nice. But I think he needs to pick up his speed a little bit. If you ask me that, whenever he plays for Real Madrid, because of his technical style, he slows down the game. But Arda Güler is a great player. He's not great yet, but he's going to be great if he starts running better. You know, you need to adjust your power or whatever energy to the 90 minutes. I think if you look at him towards the 70th minute, he dies down a little bit. Okay. And as far as your second question, I think he will be the brain along with Orkun Kökçü in the midfield and Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Those three guys, if they play, the midfield will be strong as anybody's team. And you have İsmail Yükselen also, who's very good midfield player from Fenerbahçe.
Is there any player that's in the Turkish league that maybe people aren't aware of because they don't play in England, they don't play in Italy, they don't play in Bundesliga perhaps, but someone that's local that you think this is going to be a good tournament for them and a good stage?
Uğurcan Çakır played first time as goalkeeper in the Champions League. He used to play for Trabzonspor. He got transferred to Galatasaray with a 35 million euro ticket. Now his chance to make a name for himself, just like Rüştü Reçber back in 2002. He could be, and Ferdi Kadıoğlu, who also plays in England, used to play for Fenerbahçe, but I think Ferdi Kadıoğlu is under microscope with big giant teams from England, EPL teams. You have a player in Bundesliga in Germany, Can Uzun, who's also 20 years old. He's a striker, but one thing we didn't talk about the formation. Vincenzo Montella doesn't believe in striker. He likes to use 4-3-3. Sometimes, change that. Have one of the that three player up front go in as a striker. Now, player like Barış Alper Yılmaz, we might see him, although he's a winger, and when Galatasaray put him on the striker when Osman did not play, and he did not play good. So I hope that Vincenzo Montella saw that. I hope that Vincenzo Montella doesn't put Barış Alper Yılmaz into the striker position. So this coach, Vincenzo Montella, doesn't believe in striker. He believes in 4-3-3. So we'll see what happens. But in the last two matches in the playoffs, he did put a striker, but that striker was part of that last three. So because they were doing counterattack, whenever the counterattack was happening, one of those three pulled in as a striker position. So we might see that, but I think in football that I watch at least 50, 60 years, you need a striker, a good striker. We'll see. But right now, Turkey doesn't have a good striker.
I have three.
John Ozun,
Oh, go,
yeah.
go. No, I was gonna say
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought you were finished, but I have three quick questions left. What's
Sure.
the floor and what's the ceiling? In other words, how good can it be and how bad can it be in this particular tournament?
It will be really disgusting if they don't get out of the group. And I believe that they have a pretty good chance finishing on top in this group. But if something goes wrong, second place should be good too. But as I said before, the last match in this group against USA will decide who will be the top team in this group on June 25th, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, who's your pick to win the World Cup, Ahmet? If it's not going to be Turkey, who's it going to be?
Well, I said that they have a chance. Turkey has a chance to go to quarterfinals. My pick, I love Messi. I think Argentina, could they do it again? Being Messi, being old, age-wise, and we could see him on when he plays for Miami. He's not running at all, but he's scoring goals. Now, the football that we watch in the modern football, it's pretty fast. I'm looking at French and England, one of those teams. Spain, Spain is probably will do good. They'll get to a semifinal or a final, but I think either French, and because if you look at it, French national team has got some powerful players.
Okay, last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Turkiye, Turkish football, or Turkish football culture that you think is interesting that people should know or might want to know?
Well, pretty much we talked about the team, what will happen. Only the fans are really fanatic fans. They will support the team, and there will be a lot of people traveling. But I said this ticket prices probably will hurt them coming. Some of them, but some of them don't care because my son got the ticket for first game in Vancouver, and he paid like $450 for a ticket. Now you can't get that ticket for $1,000. I believe that they're saying that there are some tickets for second match, but I think pretty much USA-Turkey match is pretty much sold out right now. If you look at it, and ticket prices are like $5,000-6,000, some are $2,000. So those $2,000 tickets probably high above. You can't see nothing. So I don't know. It just as far as Turkish people, especially in United States and Canada, are very excited to that Turkey is coming to a World Cup after 24 years. It will be something to see because I don't know if you remember 2002 World Cup, Danielle. Do you?
Because it was in South Korea. It was at a really, really bad time for the East Coast, and I was a kid. I was like 11 or 12, so I should have a memory of it, but I don't because I wasn't allowed to stay up, so I don't remember very well. But doing the history, we obviously know that Turkey made it very deep.
Yeah, the third place. They finished in third place.
Yeah,
and here's the thing: you talked about getting up early, watching the matches. This is what's going to happen with Turkey. Those people can't make it to the game, and mostly, out of 85 million, you'll be lucky if 1 million makes it to the World Cup. But I think it will be too much, even 1 million, out of question. Those people are going to get up early in the morning, like 5 a.m. in the morning, to watch the World Cup, and it's going to be a whole. I remember in 2002, we used to get up like 4 in the morning, and we used to watch the games. and I'm 68, so you could tell that I had really good times at that time in the local channel here in Rochester. I had a World Soccer Report TV program for half an hour, so I had to watch it. I had to stay up, get up, and watch all those games for 1 month. It was hectic, but it was good. I still have those tapes. I look at it sometimes. I look at myself, how young I was, but things are changed since 2002.
Amen. We thank God and we bless everybody that we're still here. We're still kicking.
Yeah, and you got to remember, since 2002, I think since 1994 World Cup, soccer has become a huge thing, along with MLS and United States women's national team and men's national team. We have, the soccer has grown so fast, especially after Beckham, now Messi. Every stadium he goes to, he sells out. I think soccer is here to stay, if you ask me.
Cool. Bob, where can people find your podcast and find you on social media?
Well, I'm used to report as a journalist for Turkish Daily newspaper, Hürriyet Daily, and now I have Turkish football podcast on any of your favorite apps. Also, you could follow me on X, former Twitter, at Turkish Soccer. I have a big follow-up on Facebook. It's called Turkish Soccer, Turkish football page. We're almost up to 20,000 there, followers. Please follow me there and like the page. And follow me every weekend for the Turkish football podcast from Turkiye. And Turkish Super League will be on during the World Cup when the Turkish national team comes to United States and Canada. And it will be a lot of fun. Thanks for your offering me to be on your show, Daniel. I hope that I answered all your questions.
It was perfect. We thank you for taking the time. Much appreciated.